You've heard the word blockchain thrown around everywhere, right? It sounds super complex, maybe a little intimidating. But what if I told you that at its heart, it's just a really clever, new way to keep records? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and demystify it, breaking it down into its simple but totally powerful core ideas. So let's jump right in.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to talk about moving beyond central control to understand the problem blockchain was built to solve. Then we'll dive into the anatomy of a blockchain, its actual building blocks. After that, we'll see how trust is built in a system with no boss. Then we'll hit its most famous feature, the unchangeable record. And finally, we'll tie it all together with why this matters.
So to really get why blockchain is such a big deal, we have to first look at the world it's challenging. For, well, basically the entire history of the internet, our digital lives have been run by one kind of system. On the left, you see the world we live in now. Centralized systems. Think about your bank, Facebook, Google. All your data lives on a central server owned by one company. It's efficient, for sure, but it's also a single point of failure. If that server goes down, or gets hacked, or the company decides to change the rules, you're out of luck. Now contrast that with the model on the right, a decentralized network. This is the blockchain way. There's no central server, no single boss. Instead, the data and the power are spread out across everyone who participates. It's a total game changer. And this picture really says it all. In this kind of network, every participant, which we call a node, talks directly to every other node. It's a true peer-to-peer system. There's no middleman. And because everyone has a copy of the records, no one person can secretly change things or just shut the whole system down. It's built to be resilient from the ground up.
Okay, so we get the why, this idea of getting away from central control. But what about the how? What are the actual pieces, the nuts and bolts that make a blockchain work?
Well, it really just boils down to these three key players. First, you've got the nodes. Those are just the individual computers all around the world that make up the network. Then you have the transactions. These are the actual pieces of information we want to record, like a payment or a transfer of data. And finally, you have the blocks, which are basically just digital boxes that we use to group those transactions together.
So let's zoom in on a transaction for a second. This is the absolute heart of the blockchain. It's the reason the whole thing exists. It's simply a record that says this person sent this asset to that person at this time. That's it. It's the basic unit of information.
So once you get a bunch of these transactions, they get bundled together into what we call a block. You can think of a block like a single page in a massive public ledger book. It holds all those transactions, a timestamp of when it was created, and, this is the most important part, a unique fingerprint of the block that came right before it. This little detail is the secret sauce.
And you can see it right here in this diagram. A block has the transaction data, sure, but it also contains that previous block's hash. That hash acts like a cryptographic link, connecting this block to the last one, which is connected to the one before that, and so on. It creates a literal chain of blocks. This is the chain in blockchain, and as you're about to see, it's what makes the whole thing incredibly secure.
Okay, so we've got a network with no boss and a growing chain of records, but the big question is, how can we possibly trust it? If anyone can participate, how do we stop people from cheating? Well, the answer is a beautiful combination of some very clever math and group agreement.
The first piece of this trust puzzle is something called cryptographic hashing. The easiest way to think about this is as a unique digital fingerprint. You can take any piece of digital information, a single word, a whole book, even a movie, and put it through a hashing function. It will always spit out a one-of-a-kind, fixed-length string of characters that is unique to that specific data.
So let's watch this in action. We take all the transaction data inside a single block, we run it through that hashing function, and out comes its unique digital fingerprint. See that code there? That represents all the data in that block.
But now, watch this. What if somebody tries to get sneaky? What if they go back and try to change just one tiny character in one of the transactions? Something almost impossible to notice with the naked eye.
Bam! The hash, that digital fingerprint, completely and totally changes. It's not just a little different, it's a brand new, completely unrecognizable code. This extreme sensitivity is what makes hashing such a powerful tamper-proof seal. The tiniest change creates a massive, obvious signal that something is wrong.
So hashing is like an amazing alarm system. But an alarm doesn't do much good if nobody agrees on what to do when it goes off. That's where the second piece comes in. A consensus mechanism. This is just a set of rules that all the computers on the network use to agree on which new blocks are legit and can be added to the chain. Some networks, like Bitcoin, use proof of work.
where computers solve hard math puzzles. Others use proof of stake, which is more energy efficient. But the goal is always the same, to get everyone in the network to agree on a single version of the truth.
Now, when you take those digital fingerprints, the hashing, and you combine them with network-wide agreement, the consensus, you get blockchain's most famous and most powerful feature, a permanent, unchangeable record.
The technical term for this is immutability. It's a fancy word, but the idea is dead simple. Once a block of transactions has been added to the chain, it's set in stone. It can't be changed, it can't be deleted, it's there forever. This is what creates a historical record that you can actually trust, without needing to trust any single person or company.
So let's walk through exactly why it's so unbreakable. Block 1 has its own unique hash, its fingerprint. When Block 2 is made, it includes the hash of Block 1 as part of its own data. Now, imagine a hacker tries to go back and alter the data in Block 1. The second they do that, Block 1's hash completely changes. Instantly, the chain is broken. Block 2 is now pointing to an old non-existent hash. The entire network can see this discrepancy immediately and will reject the fraudulent version. The attack fails because you can't change the past without breaking the entire chain that follows.
So we've gone through all the mechanics: decentralization, blocks, hashes, consensus. It's a lot to take in. But let's zoom out. What are the real-world superpowers that all this technology actually gives us?
It really boils down to these 4 core properties. We get decentralization, meaning there's no single person or company in control. We get immutability, meaning the records are tamper-proof. We get transparency, because the participants can see and verify the transactions. And when you add all that up, you get a level of security that's incredibly difficult to achieve in traditional systems.
So ultimately, the security of a blockchain isn't just some vague promise. It is the direct result of combining that incredibly clever cryptography, the digital fingerprints, with the social agreement of a consensus mechanism. These two forces work together to protect the network and create a digital fortress around the data.
And this all leads us to the final and most important question. This was never just about creating cool tech for its own sake. The real point is this. By creating a system where we can trust our digital interactions without needing a big bank, a government, or a tech giant to act as a middleman, what does that unlock? What new ways can we all collaborate, create value, and own our data in a digital world? That is the real revolution that blockchain promises.